and welcome to Daily News Simplified, the answer to what, why and how of newspaper reading. Today I am going to discuss Delhi edition dated 7th May 2018 of The Hindu. So let's begin. We will discuss this article that appears on page 7 and it reads Partial Success for Gram Swaraj Abhiyan. Now this is an important government scheme that was launched in April 2018 and so it becomes important from your upcoming prelims exam point of view. So the Gram Swaraj Abhiyan was launched on the birth anniversary of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar and it was supposed to be organized for the time period between 14th April to 5th May 2018. And the target population of this scheme are the villages that have a majority of Dalit and tribal population. The main objective of this Gram Swaraj Abhiyan is to promote social harmony, reach out to poor households, obtain feedback on ongoing programs of the government, enroll in new initiatives, focus on doubling farmers' incomes and enhance the livelihood opportunities for these Dalit and tribal homes. Next, you should know how this scheme is trying to achieve its objective. To achieve its objectives, the scheme aims for 100% coverage of 7 schemes that have been launched by the central government. And these 7 schemes are listed here in this table. These schemes are the Ujjwala scheme, which is aimed at providing gas connections, the Saubhagya scheme that aims to provide electricity connections, Ujala scheme, which is aimed at providing LED lights to households, the Jan Dhan Yojana, which is aimed at financial inclusion, Jeevan Jyoti Bima Yojana, which is focused on life insurance, Suraksha Bima Yojana, which provides risk insurance, and Mission Indradhanush, which is aimed at immunization of children and women. So this Gram Swaraj Abhiyan aims to achieve its objective by ensuring 100% coverage of these 7 schemes that are listed in this table here. However, what this article is saying, that it is talking about partial success of this Gram Swaraj Abhiyan. That is, after the conclusion of this scheme, it has been observed that 100% coverage has not been achieved for the target beneficiaries under these schemes. As you can see here, say for Ujjwala scheme, the target beneficiaries were 14.41 lakh houses. However, the scheme has only been implemented in 5.63 lakh houses and so on for all the other schemes. So from the prelims exam point of view, you should remember these 4 things about the Gram Swaraj Abhiyan, that this scheme was launched on the birth anniversary of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar for a time period between 14th April to 5th May 2018, and the main target population of this scheme is those villages that have a majority of Dalit and tribal homes. The objective of this scheme is to promote social harmony, reach out to poor households, obtain feedback on ongoing programs of the government, focus on doubling farmers' incomes and enhancing livelihood opportunities for the beneficiaries. And the scheme aims to achieve this objective through 100% coverage of 7 schemes that have already been launched by the government for their eligible beneficiaries. And these 7 schemes are listed here in this table. One more thing that I want you to remember from this discussion is please don't confuse this Gram Swaraj Abhiyan with Rashtriya Gram Swaraj Abhiyan. That is a different scheme. The objectives of Gram Swaraj Abhiyan and Rashtriya Gram Swaraj Abhiyan are different. Basically, the Rashtriya Gram Swaraj Abhiyan is aimed at strengthening the Panchayati Raj system of the country and address the critical gaps that constrain the success of the Panchayati Raj system. The main motto of this scheme is to train and assist Gram Panchayats so that they can perform their tasks efficiently. So this Rashtriya Gram Swaraj Abhiyan is aimed at strengthening the Panchayati Raj system across the country and address the critical gaps that constrain the success of the Panchayati Raj system. Both these schemes, the Gram Swaraj Abhiyan and Rashtriya Gram Swaraj Abhiyan, are different from each other. So please do not get confused in the exam. With this, we will move on to the next article. The next important article that we'll discuss appears on page 9 and it reads Continental Ambition. Now this article talks about the African Continental Free Trade Area, and this topic forms a part of GS paper 2 in International Relations under the heading Bilateral, Regional and Global Groupings. So this topic of African Continental Free Trade Area has been covered in the April 2018 issue of Focus magazine. So let us understand it from there. The 18th session of the African Union held in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia in 2012 adopted a decision to establish a continental free trade area by 2017. And as a result, 44 African countries have signed the African Continental Free Trade Area and the protocol establishing the African Economic Community in Kigali, Rwanda in March 2018. An important fact about this is that it would be the largest single market in the world. The Continental Trade Deal will also be the world's largest trade group since the creation of the World Trade Organization. This protocol, which will establish the African Economic Community, will be related to free movement of persons, right of residence and right of establishment. Next, you should understand what are the objectives of the African Continental Free Trade Area. It aims to create a single continental market for goods and services, free movement of business persons and investments. It aims to accelerate the establishment of Continental Customs Union and the African Customs Union. It aims to expand intra-African trade. Its objective is to bring about coordination among the members for trade facilitation regimes and instruments. It aims to enhance the competitiveness at the industry and enterprise level on pan-African level. And lastly, it aims to exploit opportunities for scale production and continental market access. And how does the Continental Free Trade Agreement aim to achieve this? It aims to abolish import duties on 90% of the goods, and this is projected to increase the trade by around 50%. So I hope you have understood a few key points about the African Continental Free Trade Area. We have discussed some background of the African Continental Free Trade Area, that in 2012, the African Union decided to establish a Continental Free Trade Area by 2017, and hence in March 2018, 44 African countries have come together to sign this free trade agreement and the protocol establishing African Economic Community. Also, this free trade area would be the largest single market in the world, and it would be the world's largest trade group since the creation of the World Trade Organization. We have also talked about the main objectives of this Continental Free Trade Agreement and how these objectives will be achieved. Another important fact that you should remember, that Nigeria and South Africa, which are the two largest economies of Africa, have not yet signed this CFTA. They have both showcased a wait and watch routine, and they intend to further negotiate with CFTA on trade rules, regulations and exemptions. Next, we will understand what will be the significance of this pact for Africa. So in 2016, the exports within Africa were merely 18% of the continent's total exports. This corresponding number is very high for other continents. For example, for Asia, the corresponding number is around 59%. Thus, the creation of this ACFTA will help to increase the share of exports within Africa by creating a continent-wide single market, and it will transform Africa from an exporter of commodities and raw materials to a supplier of finished manufactured goods. Also, ACFTA will help in trade diversification of Africa by moving to value-added industrial products, and it will also help in employment generation in Africa. However, certain concerns are also associated with this ACFTA. So let's discuss them as well. Firstly, there is a concern that the implementation of ACFTA would lead to initial loss of tariffs and uneven costs and benefits. However, this will only be a transitionary process. Also, as I have discussed earlier, that this ACFTA aims to abolish import duties on 90% of the goods. But it is also planning to exempt some sensitive goods from this trade liberalization process. That is, it is not going to reduce the import duties on certain sensitive goods. However, the concern associated with this is that it may influence the ratification process by some of the member countries of ACFTA. And lastly, this ACFTA may face issues due to poor infrastructure connectivity in Africa. So apart from the background and the objectives of ACFTA, we have also discussed the significance of ACFTA for Africa. We understood that in 2016, the exports within Africa constituted only 18% of the total continent's exports. So hence, this ACFTA will help to create a continent-wide single market in Africa and transform Africa to a finished manufactured goods exporter. Also, this ACFTA will bring about trade diversification in Africa by moving to value-added industrial products and also help in employment generation. However, certain concerns are also associated with this ACFTA, such as the initial loss of tariffs and uneven costs and benefits associated with ACFTA. Secondly, this ACFTA plans to exempt some sensitive goods from the trade liberalization process. That is, it will not reduce the import duties on certain sensitive goods, and this may influence the ratification process of ACFTA by some countries. And lastly, the poor infrastructure connectivity in Africa may also influence the implementation of ACFTA. So this is a very important topic from international relations point of view, as this has been formed very recently. So the student should read this topic from prelims exam point of view. With this, we will move on to the next article. The next article that we will discuss appears on page 7 and it reads, "Return of child to place of habitual residence may not be in best interest." So the main focus of this article is that the Justice Bindal Committee has raised concerns in its report on the features of Hague Convention on the civil aspects of international child abduction. So with the help of this article, we will try to understand few things. That is, what is the issue pertaining to this Hague Convention? What is the Convention on International Child Abduction? Why India has not signed this treaty? So the main issue is that India has been under pressure by the US and other countries to accede to the Hague Convention on International Child Abduction. In this respect, the Justice Rajesh Bindal Committee was set up in 2017, and the main purpose of this committee was to suggest a model legislation to safeguard the interest of the child as well as those of the parents when a NRI marriage goes sour and one of the parents flees from one country to another with the child. We should also understand what is this Convention on International Child Abduction. So there are two main points about this convention. Firstly, it seeks to protect the children who have been wrongfully removed from the custody of one parent by the other. And the main principle of this treaty is the criterion of habitual residence of the child, which is used to determine whether the child was wrongfully removed by a parent. So I hope you have understood that this article is trying to focus on the concerns raised by the Justice Bindal Committee on the Hague Convention of Civil Aspects of International Child Abduction. The issue is that India is being pressurized by US and other countries to accede to this Hague Convention. We also understood that this Justice Bindal Committee was constituted in 2017 to suggest a model legislation for safeguarding the interests of the child as well as those parents when an NRI marriage goes sour and one of the parents flees from one country to another with the child. We also understood about the meaning of this Hague Convention on International Child Abduction. This convention seeks to protect children who have been wrongfully removed from the custody of one parent by the other parent, and this is decided on the basis of a criterion of habitual residence of the child. And another important thing that you should know is that India has not yet signed this treaty. The reason why India has not yet signed this treaty is that it can be detrimental to the interest of those women who are fleeing an abusive marriage and has concerns with the principle of the habitual residence of the treaty. That is, India has raised concerns about this habitual residence criterion. So from the exam point of view, you should remember some key points about this Justice Bindal Committee, about the Hague Convention on the Civil Aspects of International Child Abduction, and that India is not yet a member of this Convention on International Child Abduction. With this, we will move on to the next article. The next article that we will discuss appears on page 8 and it reads, Defying the Logic of Democracy. So this article talks about the topic of simultaneous elections and it forms a part of GS paper 2 under the heading Parliament and State Legislatures, Structure, Functioning, Conduct of Business, etc. And also a question has also been asked on simultaneous elections in the mains exam in 2017, which said simultaneous election to the Lok Sabha and the state assemblies will limit the amount of time and money spent in electioneering, but it will reduce the government's accountability to the people. Discuss. So in today's discussion also, we will try to understand what will be the impact of simultaneous elections on accountability, what will be its impact on governance and democracy, and what will be its impact on citizen participation in the election process. So basically in this article, the author has criticized the idea of simultaneous polls for parliament and state legislatures. The author has said that the implications of holding simultaneous elections to the parliament and state legislatures runs contrary to the spirit of democracy as well as federalism. Let's understand what are the arguments that have been given by the author in this article against the concept of holding of simultaneous election. Firstly, the author has talked about the debate between governance and democracy pertaining to the simultaneous elections. So the author says that usually politicians argue that simultaneous elections will help in providing governance effectively. However, here the author argues that populist leaders have rallied people around the banner of good governance but forgotten democracy. So here the author says that we should understand the importance of democracy and we should not mix up these concepts of good governance and democracy here. Democracy initiates, fosters and sustains a conversation between the government and the citizens, and thus elections facilitate and develop this conversation between the citizens and the representatives. So instead of simultaneous elections, having frequent elections will strengthen the democracy as it will initiate, foster and sustain a conversation between the government and the citizens. The second topic that the author talks about is citizen participation. Here, the author says that representative democracies are based upon two crucial preconditions. These preconditions are firstly that citizens are well informed about the affairs of the state, and secondly, citizens have a stake in the political system. This basically implies that citizenship lies at the heart of electoral democracy. And in this respect, the author says that holding frequent elections would be better because this will help the citizens to exercise their right to control their representatives as well as keep themselves informed. So till now we have understood two arguments that the author has given against the holding of simultaneous elections and in the favor of having frequent elections. Firstly, the author has talked about the debate between governance and democracy. The author says that politicians argue that simultaneous elections will help in improving governance in the country. But the author argues that improving good governance should not imply that democracy should be forgotten. This is because democracy in a country initiates, fosters and sustains a conversation between the government and its citizens. And hence, holding frequent elections will help to maintain and to sustain this conversation between government and the citizens, which might not be maintained in the case of simultaneous elections. Secondly, the author talks about citizen participation, wherein the preconditions for a representative democracy are that citizens should be well informed and that citizens have a stake in the political system. And this is possible only under the system of frequent elections, which help the citizens to exercise their right to control the political representatives as well as keep themselves informed. Next, the author talks about the effect of simultaneous elections on the accountability of political representatives. So, under the simultaneous election system, even if the government loses the confidence of the House and the opposition fails to provide an alternative government, then the present government continues. So, the government will continue to rule but illegitimately. Also, simultaneous elections provide a chance to the representatives to ignore the constituency for 5 years and come back only during the election season. And according to the author, both these points reflect that how simultaneous elections hamper the accountability of the political representatives. Hence, the author says that frequent elections will keep up the pressure on the representatives to deliver their election promises. And this, according to the author, will improve the accountability of the political representatives. So I hope you have understood this last point pertaining to accountability of political representatives under simultaneous elections. In this, under simultaneous elections, if the government loses confidence of the House and the opposition fails to provide an alternative government, then the present government continues. So this means that the government continues to rule but illegitimately, and this hampers the accountability of political representatives. Also, under simultaneous elections, representatives have the chance to ignore the constituency for 5 years and come back only during the election season, and this also hampers the accountability. Thus, the author says that it is better to have frequent elections because they will keep up the pressure on the political representatives to deliver their promises, and hence this will improve their accountability. And you should read these points from the mains exam point of view. With this, we will move on to the next article. Next, we will discuss this article that appears on page 5, and it reads, Puppetry hangs by a thread in Prakasam. This topic forms a part of art and culture in the syllabus, and from this we will try to understand about the Tholu Bommalata puppetry show. Firstly, this is a shadow puppet theatre and it is associated with the state of Andhra Pradesh. Also here, the first word implies leather and the second word means puppet dance, which means that it is a dance of leather puppets. Also, the plays in this puppet show are drawn from Ramayana, Mahabharata and Puranas. So such questions are usually asked in the prelims exam, and you should know these key points about the Tholu Bommalata puppet show, which is a shadow puppet theatre associated with the state of Andhra Pradesh, and it implies a dance of leather puppets. Also, the plays in this puppet show are drawn from Ramayana, Mahabharata and Puranas. With this, we will move on to the next article. The next article that we will discuss appears on page 7 and it reads, Aranmula's snakeboats will waltz along this year. This topic also forms a part of art and culture in the syllabus, and it talks about the Aranmula snakeboat race. This snakeboat race takes place in Aranmula village in Kerala along the Pampa river. Also, this snakeboat race takes place during the Onam festival. So such questions are also asked in the UPSC prelims exam, and from this you should only remember the key points about the Aranmula snakeboat race, that it takes place in the Aranmula village in Kerala along the Pampa river and it takes place during the Onam festival. With this, we come to an end to today's newspaper discussion. Now let's move on to question for the day.